So thank you for coming. She came all the way from California just for this event. And I just wanted to tell you how I know Monica. I know her from Brazil. We went to the same high school. And she was in the same friend group as my sister. So everywhere I went, I saw Monica. And we would have like church events, and we would have like church events, and I would see Monica there. I would just see her everywhere. And so just recently, in the last couple of years, I heard her testimony, and I was so shocked because I was like, I didn't know you went through that, right? And so the testimony that I heard of her story and what I saw, and the Monica that I knew was very different. So she talks about anger, resentment, depression, anxiety, and I didn't see any of that growing up. And so, the Monica I saw was kind, gentle, so sweet. She was very open. She couldn't be friends with anybody, and that's what I saw, right?
You can hide it really well.
Yeah. So I was telling her, just preparing for this event, I said, I didn't know you went through all that, and I didn't know, seeing you at these church events, I didn't know you didn't know God. And she was very surprised.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference between being in church events and really knowing God, right? And so I think I did grow up around some Christians and attending some Christian events, but I was not a believer, and I didn't even think God had existed, right? So I think in these events, sometimes we don't really talk much, or we know each other, but we don't really know. We don't really know what's going on right inside of us. And so anyway, I think that's the difference. So I grew up in the church. I grew up in the Catholic Church until I was 11. And then my parents got a divorce because my dad cheated on my mom. And I say this very openly with his permission. So I completely honor him and I love him so much. But at age 11, he cheated on my mom with her best friend, who was my aunt. And so he disappeared for a week. And then we all figured out that he was with my aunt. And then they both went back home. He came back home. But my mom said, there's no way I'm going to accept. And so she filed for divorce. My aunt went back to her husband, my uncle, and he received her back. And they worked through the marriage for 10 years. I think it took at least 10 years to really heal. But my parents, they divorced, separated everything. At first, my mom had her custody through court, but then she lost custody. It's a long story short, but she lost the custody, and then we grew up with my dad. And so...
You and your brother?
Me, my sister, my brother. So I'm the oldest, and so we grew up all together with my dad, and then my mom ended up moving to LA. That's how we all ended up there, because part of the story is that 10 years later, right, so they were divorced for 10 years. 10 years later, then they remarried each other. So now they've been remarried for over 20 years. And I think if you see them ever, that's another picture I could have shared you. Is that you would never know that they hated each other so much, because there was so much hate. So, age 11, they divorced, and at that time, the Catholic Church, which in São Paulo, there's only one Korean Catholic Church for everybody, one. So it's thousands of people, but very small community, because everybody knows you, right? Knows you by family name, right? And so, but they kicked us out of the church. And I think that's when my journey with the church started with, I just felt so jaded by the church. And I just couldn't understand, right? So But during those 11 years growing up in the Catholic Church, this is not just Catholic Church, I think any church, we can attend and not have a relationship with God, and we just go through the motions, right? The religious motions, but we don't really have that connection with God. We don't. That was my case. So I grew up in the church, but we had the religion, right? It's like, you know, the rules, the laws, you know what's sin and what's not sin, and so, but I didn't know God, and I didn't believe that He existed. It was just so foreign for me. I never heard anyone saying God wants a relationship with you. It was more ritual. So that was my relationship with the church for 11 years. We got kicked out, and then it became a relationship of just rejection, a lot of question. What is the church?
But you also stayed in the church, the Catholic Church, for a bit, right? After your family was not allowed to come back.
So my family were not allowed to come back. They're not allowed to attend the church. But I think I went for a little bit, maybe a year. But you know when you go and you feel like you're not welcomed? So I felt like I was not welcome. People would not look at me in my eyes. So you know that you're not supposed to be there. So I think little by little I was like, there's no point of coming. You know, what's the point of being here, but you're not welcome, or you don't fit in, right? It's very clear no one wants to look at you as if you are a disgrace, you know? I think at that point I'm a disgrace because of my parents, right? So then when I stopped going to church, then I met other people in school, which was Adri's, one of them, Lucy. And so I think that's when I was around Christians, but I would go to the events, I would go to certain things, gatherings, but inside of me, it was this battle, right? It was like, what is this, right? And my relationship with the church was of more hate. It's very ironic, I'm a pastor now. So, but I hated the church. God knows more than I know. So I hated the church. I thought it was so hypocritical. And I thought, and also in São Paulo, it's a small Korean immigrant community. So you have all these different churches, but I grew up with not Lucy and Adri. They were the good ones. But I grew up with a lot of just hearing the hate between churches, slandering, bashing out, and criticizing, and me being in the middle of all of that, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a part of this, because I am already a part of this in my own home, right? So my growing up in my teenage years, my dreams were not of like, I wouldn't even dream of like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Honestly, I was always thinking, I can remember thinking in my bed, is it possible to not have hate? And is it possible for people to forgive each other? Because at that point, everybody hated each other so much in my family. It wasn't just my mom and my dad, but it was the uncles and cousins and fighting and bashing each other, slandering and talking crap about each other. And he said, okay, sorry, it's a church event, but sorry. So then I was like, oh, this is so tiring, and is it possible for people to even love each other? And so my questions were like, what is love? Like, what does it mean, love? And so those were my teenage years.
So can you elaborate a little bit on your teenage years? Because I think
So my teenage years, okay,
right?
yeah.
So like, what was happening inside? What was happening in your home? What was happening in your friend group? Like, there's so much that I think that because of this year, like so much more happened after.
Yes.
Right?
So growing up, again, my mom was gone at that point, maybe 12, 13. So she's gone, so I was the caregiver, right? So I was really, starting age maybe 13. So I was the one who was in charge of everything of the house. So it was going to school, but then coming back home, I have to take care of my brothers. I have to make sure the house is everything is clean, the maids and the cooks and everything. Everyone is doing their part. I was really running the house. And I had to take them to doctors and I'm the one going to the supermarket. I'm the one doing everything, right? And so I was very stressed. I was very stressed. And I had a lot of body pain, a lot of headache. I don't think I knew at that time how depressed I was starting to become, but I was so depressed, right? And I had no sense of who I was. I think there was so much going on that there was no time for me to be me. So my teenage years were very busy, very full, but very stressed, very depressed, and I only thought of suicide, right? Which is, I think it's a whole other topic that I think it needs to be talked, because that's one of the main things I feel like the teenagers today are going through, even 100 times worse than my time. Because during my time, girls, there was no TikTok, no Instagram, no YouTube. But I was living in so much anxiety and so much depression, and feeling like anywhere I would go, even in school, it was hard to feel like I belonged. I was feeling like a fish out of, what is it, a fish out of the water? Yeah, fish, thank you. Fish out of the water, right? It's you don't fit in. And then also always worried, what are people gonna think? And I'm always thinking, always worried about, just what people, how they think about me. Because I kind of knew, right? So I grew up thinking, knowing that I was not acceptable, knowing that I was not invited, knowing that I was not welcomed, right? And so even the Christian girls, that some of them, not Lucy and Adri, but even the Christian, it's very important because it's a big detail that I think made a huge difference in my life. But there were girls that would tell me that I was not allowed to go into their homes, because their parents would say that my parents were sinners. So you cannot be around them. You'll get dirty if you get around Monica. So I grew up feeling really dirty, right? And so I remember one of our friends, which ironically, she's the one who fasted and prayed for my salvation, but her mom would not allow me in her home. So I remember we would all go to her house. Everybody would go up. I had to wait downstairs. Bless her. So I think it's the depression, the anxiety, the not belonging, not welcomed, dirty.
So when you say that, what did that look like for you?
I felt like I don't want to live.
I don't want to live. Like, how does that translate in your life? What were you doing?
Yeah, so I then was very shut down. I even asked Diana and Lucy later. I don't remember if I asked her, but I asked Diana, our other friend, I said, did I ever tell you everything that was going on at home? And she's like, no, you would never complain. You would never say anything. So I think I was so shut down. So I was very shut down, but it was a constant thought every day. I don't want to live. I don't want to live. I don't want to go to school. I just want to disappear. It would be so much easier. And then I started to, my outlet was hanging out with friends. So, girls don't do this, but I was always running out of the house, running away in the middle of the night. I was not doing drugs. I just literally needed needed human connection. So I would just run and be with friends. I literally would not be doing anything wrong. Well, just jumping out of my window. But but I was just hanging out, right? I needed the connection. I needed relationship. I think that's what I was craving, relationships. So then, age 15, I started dating my ex. We were together for 7 years. Very toxic relationship. Really bad relationship, but I couldn't get out. And then age 16, I got pregnant. And then I remember, oh my gosh, like, I'm already not acceptable. Now, Monica, you added more. You added more reasons for people to judge you, criticize you, and not accept you, and you're not welcome. So then I was like, there's no option here. That's what I thought back then. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. So then I thought, you know, I really didn't think through. And I thought the only option I have is to get an abortion. My dad was out of town. It's perfect. So he was out of town. I was with the kids and the maids and the driver and whatever. And a friend of mine who was old enough, she gave me a fake ID. I am not giving you ideas, but then gave me a fake ID. But then I went on my own with my friends, 2 of them, and I got the abortion. It was like going in and out, a little shop. It was illegal in Brazil, and so then I got the abortion, came out. But then one of the things that people don't talk about abortion, and when I talk about this topic in the church, I always say, we don't talk about the effects of it later. But it opens up a whole world, especially the spiritual world, where there's more suicidal thoughts, more shame, more death, the spirit of death, you know. So then my depression just got worse. And then age 18, I think it was 18, we graduated high school. I went to study on my own in Paris. And then it was in Paris that I started it feels like it just started to go worse, but now looking back, I'm like, I think this is where it started to make the difference. But during this time, what happened was my mom was in LA, she was working in the church, so then she started to get saved. And she was encountering God and Jesus. She tells me the stories of her being in her room and Jesus just coming in and holding her. And I don't think I could understand at that age what that meant. Today, I'm in my 40s, and I think about my mom, because my mom was going through all this at age 31, 32. So now I look back, and when I think about it, she lost her husband who cheated on her. She lost all her kids. She's completely alone and destitute. Now she's in LA living with her mom. And she cannot hide anything because everybody knows her shame. And so I think what the meaning of Jesus coming into her room and holding her is so significant for me today, because she's not telling me how much pain she was in, but now I know that Jesus was coming into the room to comfort her because it was so painful. She lost everything. So then Jesus starts to really encounter her and heal her. So she starts to pray, God, bring back my husband, heal my marriage, heal my family, and bring salvation to my children. So she prayed for at least, 4 or 5 years as she was serving the church. So she was serving, Korean church. I don't know how it is here, but she was at the Full Gospel Church. So it's prayer every day, 6 a.m., Monday through Friday. She has one day break, which is Saturday. and then Sunday back again. So my mom is a pianist, so she played the piano every day, 6 a.m. for the whole church. I think it was a setup of God for her, because I think she was there serving, but God was touching her. And so she was praying, restore my family, restore my family. So restore my marriage, bring back my husband, and bring salvation to my kids. At that time I was so lost, and everybody knew. When everybody
You were
knew.
in Paris this time.
Yes, I was in Paris. So, but my mom moved to LA when I was, 13, 14, so yeah, so then at this time, when I'm in LA, and she's in LA, and little by little, she's getting healed. Then when I'm in Paris, then I think her prayers were starting to make an effect. Of course, I didn't know, but I think the way what was happening in me in Paris was just a lot of questioning. So I was questioning, so much question about, there's gotta be something else in this, there's gotta be more to this life. I think it's what's the purpose and what's the reason to live? And I would call my dad, because my dad was my best friend. So I just call him and say, what's the point of living? I just don't want to live. I don't have a motivation. Is it to make money? Well, that's not good motivation for me. That doesn't make me want to live, if that's the point of living. Is it to get a good degree, the best fashion school degree in Paris? I could care less. Is it to buy a big house and a nice car and then show it to everybody that I got it? I don't care. All these things, I really don't care. So what's the point of living? There's gotta be more than this. It's gotta be more than every day making money, having good degrees, and having stuff. It's not enough for me. I just don't want it. I don't need it, So it doesn't fulfill. I just feel so empty. So I started the search. I started searching and searching. I don't know I don't know that I knew then what I was searching for. It was just searching. It's just searching for something to make me feel complete. Searching for something to make me feel at peace. Searching for something, and at that time too, I was very tormented. So I would go to bed and I couldn't sleep. I think it would take at least 2 hours for me to sleep, but it was attacks in my mind, I was just feeling so dizzy with so much attack and so much thoughts, and I think now that I know that it was a spiritual attack, and sometimes I feel like I would feel the presence of demons, and it was just so dark. It was very, very dark, very dark, very lonely, no motivation to live, and even sleeping was torture. So maybe that's also one of the reasons I couldn't sleep. I didn't want to sleep, because going to sleep meant that I was going to have nightmares, right? I always had nightmares, so I'm like, oh my gosh, it's better to stay awake. So I was so tormented. I had so much torment and fears. Paris, it started to get worse, right? Because at this point, I have so much time for myself that I have to think. So, I always tell young people, there are young people that are always busy. I'm like, yeah, you're running away, right? Because you don't want to think. You don't want to slow down to think, right? So for me, that was with the Paris, I had to think. So everything started to come out. And so in that moment in Paris, I think it started to get worse. So there was a season even that I could not get out of my house. I think that's when I started to see how serious it was. I found a therapist, a French psychologist. It's so hard to say how I feel, everything in French. But she helped me understand my breaking down. It's a whole other story, but it had to do with me feeling so lonely because I was alone in Paris. And it was connected to, at age 11, how I felt so deeply lonely, but I never had the time to process. So I always say to people too, you need to process things. Things are happening to you, and if you just keep on shutting it down and not wanting to think about it, not wanting to process or talk about it, yeah, maybe you can do it for 10 years, like I did, but then at some point, it will need to come out. Just like what you eat needs to come out somehow. So, it needs to come out. So, whatever comes in, it needs to come out. So for me, it started to spill over. It started to overflood all the stuff that I was trying to shut it down, and it started to come out, right? And so that was Paris, even though I did have a good time in Paris, but still, it was, I think that's when I started to search, question, is there something else besides this life? What would happen if I died, right? Where will I go, right? Am I just body and flesh, or is there something else? Which I know today that there's a spirit world, right? So, but back then I just thought that what I see, the material world, is only the reality. But then I started to realize, that's when I started to, I think, search, there's gotta be more. So then it was very, that's when I think it started to get bad, and then at age 21, 22, I'm done with school, and I go back to Brazil. And when I get to Brazil, there's a huge revival happening in our city. And the Koreans, my crazy Korean friends, you know, all the all the, you know, the druggies and all the hippies, all the ravers back then, right? We were all getting saved. And it was like, but it was not like now going to church out of behavior, like I'm gonna behave well and become a good Christian. No. It was this, I don't know how else to explain, but it was, you know, the Spirit of God was moving in such a way in our city where people would get convicted of their sins, of their life here. It wasn't even about the outside. It was here in the heart, right? And I really believe only the Spirit of God can do that. And so that started to happen to me. Like I remember, long story short, I remember being in sermons, and I literally would feel this conviction. There's no other word for conviction.
So can you tell them?
What is the conviction?
Can you tell them? What did that conviction feel like? So, you know, you would be sitting here and the pastor is speaking, and what did you feel? Remember you telling your friend?
Yeah.
I was like, I remember after the service, I ran to my friend, I was like, how dare you? You told the pastor my whole life. This is intimate, you know? You don't tell him everything about my life. And she's like, no, I didn't tell him anything. And I was like, okay, so how does he know my whole life? And she's like, he doesn't know anything. It's God speaking to you. And for me, it was like, I don't understand. How can God speak to me? Because what I tell a lot of young people is that I call myself, I used to be a pagan. I was a total pagan, right? Because I didn't believe in God. I had no idea of God. I would not follow God, right? No idea of Him. So when they started to tell me, no, this is God speaking to you, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand your language, right? And so, I even have friends that we talk about abortion, for example. And I'm like, at age 16, Monica, who did not know God, had no relationship with him at all, if any Christian would come to me and tell me it was wrong, I'm like, I could care less. It's wrong for you. It's wrong for your God. He's not my God. I don't believe in him. Right? How can you expect me to live according to your rules? It's not my life. It's my life and it's not my rules. That was my attitude. But, so now later on, I'm 22, this is happening, and I'm starting to, the conviction, I think it was more, it's like God speaking to you. I felt naked. I don't know how else to explain. I just felt like he knew everything. I remember shaking with that understanding now of he knows me. Oh my gosh, there's a God that knows me. And I'm like so, I don't know what the word is, I'm so freaking out that how can a God know me? He knows everything about me. And I remember having conversations alone in my house. I'm like, I can't hide anymore. I cannot hide, I cannot pretend anymore. Because here I am and he knows everything about me, and God knows everything about me. So when that happened, I remember it felt like this. There's only one way to explain. It was like everything was dark. Everything was dark in my life. I thought I was alone. And then someone turned the light on. And when the light went on, I saw that God was always there. Even though I couldn't see him, even though I couldn't feel him, even though I didn't know him. All these years, from the beginning I was conceived, from the moment of conception, he knew me. He was always there. And that was crazy for me. It was so overwhelming. It was like, it took a long time to even get around it. Because I'm like, I thought this whole time, 22 years of my life, I thought I was alone in a dark place. Now the light is turning on, and I see that he was always there. And so I think conviction is not condemnation, that's what I say. Because I never felt condemnation with God. Yes, from people. Yes, from humans, but not from God. And that's when I think I started to understand that God is not like men. Men meaning humans, men and women. God is not like them. He's so amazing.
So we are going to have to close soon, but there's so much of Monica's testimony that we haven't even touched. But because we are here because of the awakening of God's love, what changed you? Like, what changed you inside out? If you were to put that in a short paragraph.
So challenging. Okay, so I think it was the love of God. I think that's why it's awakened by love, because people would ask me, what happened, what's the difference? And I remember saying, I don't know how to explain, but I was dead. I was dead. And now I am alive, and I don't know how to explain. And it was everything dark, and now there's light. Now I know God is here. And I think what started to struck me, and it started to really make a difference, was because before it was religion. Before it was the rules of man. What's acceptable and what's not. Right? I don't know how the Korean community here is, but I know in Brazil, for example, it's very critical. It's a lot of gossip, talking down on each other, a lot of comparison, competition, keeping up with each other. right? I think the teenagers can know that. There's so much comparison on TikTok, Instagram, and posing and all this stuff in your life. So I think that what started to happen to me was that now it was not about religion. It had nothing to do with religion. It had nothing to do with man's expectation and man's roles. Now it was this living God coming into my life, and he wants to relate with me. So I grew up thinking I'm unacceptable, I'm unwanted. I grew up thinking and feeling you're not welcome. No one can touch you because you're a sinner, your parents are sinners, and now you are a sinner too. And so you're impure, you're dirty. We cannot be around you, right? There were families that literally would tell their kids, you cannot be around Monica. So now I'm meeting this God who's saying everything the opposite. Saying, I want you. I love you. You are welcome here. A God that was not religion, but he's a God, a living God. That's the difference between other religions and our God, is that our God is not just an idea, a theology. It's not just words. He's a living God. He's alive. He's alive and he's well and he's seated in his throne and he's aware of everything. That's the big difference. And not only that, he's not just ruling up there, but he wants a relationship with me. And so for me, that took a long time. That took a long time for me to accept and understand, because I couldn't understand, because my brain, I was conditioned to think I'm not acceptable. I was conditioned to think I'm dirty. Was conditioned to think I'm not welcomed or unwanted. And now there's this God saying, I want a relationship with you. I love you. I want to make my home in you, in your heart. I want to be with you 24 hours. And I was like, I don't understand that. And I would say even to my leaders, how can a pure, good God want to be with me? I'm dirty. Why would he want to do that? Or say that he died on the cross for me? I literally took years for me to accept, because my thing was, why would he do that for someone so dirty and sinner like me? Why? Die for someone good. Give your life for someone good. I'm not good. I'm no good. Why would you die for me? So for a year, it took years, ladies, because I just could not fathom. I could not understand. I could not accept. It was too good to be true. It was so good to be true that I would tell my leaders, it's too good. I can't take it. It's just too good. It's too good. There's gotta be a trick. I literally thought that was a trick. No one would be so good to me. What do you, and I would ask this all the time, what does he want from me? Have you ever had friends like that? I have some people, that, why are you so nice? Why are you so good? Why are you always happy?
I had the privilege of hearing all of her story, well, most of her story. And so, it did take Monica years of even acknowledging that God exists. Even when the light turned on for her, it took years for her to process that he was here. What does that mean for me? But, with her parents' divorce, with her body, with everything, my last question would be, how did God heal you? In what ways? How did he restore you? Because she was broken in so many ways. But we know she's a living testimony of how God restored her. And so,
yeah, let's see if I can do it short. I think it was everything. Like I said, my teenagers, I had body problems. So I had digestive issues. I had migraines. I had body pain in every part of my body. And it's the stress, the anxiety, and everything. So all that started to heal. And then he restored my family. So my parents got remarried to each other. That's a whole other story. And they will say that it was because of God, really. So their marriage got restored, our family got restored, all of us got saved. Me, my sister, my brother, my dad got saved. And then our relationships were restored. It's a whole other story about my relationship with my mom because I hated her so much. But I remember the moment that the hate left my heart. And I think that a lot of us don't think about how much hate is, it's a heavy weight on us. But the moment that the hate left, I remember I felt like I was floating. And so my relationship with my mom completely changed. My relationship in my family changed. And then little by little, then inside out, I feel like God started to, what was broken, started to be mended, which I told the ladies the other day the story. It was as if I don't know how else to explain, but it was like something was broken in me. I was broken. So anything that would come in, it just leaks. Nothing holds. So I know the moment when he healed that, and then I was becoming whole inside. So I tell my clients all the time, it's not about living from outside in, it's living from inside out. You can't want to fix everything on the outside and not fix you. We need to fix here inside of us what's broken, and then we live from inside out. And so then everything started to become whole, and then I think it was one step at a time. I know that we're telling you all this in 30, 40 minutes, but it was a process. And then, of course, even marrying my husband was another process of my healing. Because even though I knew God loved me, God was restoring me, but he started to restore also my hope. Forgot about that. Because depression, right, and then anxiety, both of them is feeling hopeless. I think more depression. Depression is feeling hopeless. There's no way out. I cannot change this. What happened to me, right? Whatever happened to me is done. I cannot change the past. But I think God was starting to show to me, and I remember the day that hope came into my heart because he said, look at this, look at your life. I can change. I can make new things in your life. I can restore. I have the power to restore. I have the power to make you whole. Even though you were broken for such a long time, I can make it whole and not leak anymore. And then marrying my husband too was a whole other process of self-worth. Because the relationship before, why is it that I couldn't get out? For 7 years, I could not get out. It was because no one is gonna want me. Who's gonna want me? You know what, if this man wants to be with me, okay, it's the worst. But I'll just stay, and there are many women who stay in a really bad relationship. Why? Because they think that no one else is going to want them. Well, I'm here to tell you that there will be someone better that will want you if you're in a bad relationship, right? So I couldn't get out. So now, fast forward, I'm meeting my husband. Now it's the opposite. He's too good for me, right? So that was a whole other healing in my heart. And then God took away the shame in my life too, because I say shame and guilt is different. Shame is there's something wrong with me. So shame, you start hiding. You don't want anyone to find that out about you. And you it's a torture. Because every time you think, oh my gosh, if anyone found out this about me, found this out about me, I'm dead. They're not gonna love me. They're not gonna like me. They're not gonna want to be friends with me. I'm not gonna be accepted, I'm not gonna be wanted. I better pretend everything is okay. I better make sure no one finds this out about me. That's shame, right? It goes back to Garden of Adam and Eve. It goes back to all that. It's the root of sin. So shame, you hide. But guilt is different. Guilt is, okay, I did something wrong, but you know what, I can fix it. I can make better next time. So guilt is important, but not shame. But then, even though I was at the church, even though now I'm walking with God, even though now I know God has made me new, even though now I know that He loves me, even though now I know how much power He has to restore, I still lived in shame. I always thought, if anyone in the church found out that I had an abortion, it's the end of me. So I stayed hiding. And I did not want anyone to know. And that's when God came into my life and He removed that shame in a supernatural way, I say it was a miracle. And that's when I figured, I was like, oh, I thought I could live with shame because I thought it was so light. You think that, oh, it's okay, I can just live with it every day. If just no one finds out, I'll be fine, right? But it was like, in that moment I realized, when it lifted, then I realized, oh shoot, I didn't need to live with this. But that's where I think I was also starting the journey of not being afraid of being known, not being afraid of being me, and fully accepting myself. And so I think that was a big journey of healing. So I'm still in that journey, ladies. I think until I see Jesus. But I feel like he healed so many parts of my life. He healed my heart. He made me whole. What was broken was now mended. He healed my mind, my thoughts. Right? He healed my body, He healed my family, He healed my relationships. Then He healed even now, gave me this huge blessing to marry such a wonderful and amazing man of God. And so, and I think it's just the beginning.
Yes. So before we end, I did ask Monica if she had a song that was special to her. And so I'm just gonna ask Monica to it's in Portuguese. Yeah, it's in Portuguese. And so just the part that was touching to her, or that meant to her, something, special to her, she's going to translate for us, and we'll listen just shortly.
So this song is very special for me, and it says, Quanto amor, so it's in Portuguese, ladies. So you'll be introduced to Portuguese worship today, Brazilian worship. But quanto amor ele tem por mim. It's how much love He has for me. And quanta dor sofreu por mim por amor. And how much pain, he's talking about the cross, how much pain He suffered because of love for me. And the reason of such great love was to show me how valuable my life is. I'm so precious to God that He gave His only Son to die on the cross for me. And then He says, oh God, I praise You for Your love. You changed my inner being. And now I want to live to transmit, to share this love that comes from You. So I know we're gonna play the song, but I wanna say to you ladies, whoever it is that is here and you don't know how much loved you are, how much your life is valuable, and it has value. not the world that tells you how much value you have. It will never be enough. But it's God who tells you that you were so valuable to Him. You are so valuable. Your life is so significant. Your life matters so much. You're not just something that happened. You're not just a blob. You're not just a blob. You didn't just happen. You didn't just happen. You didn't just. You're not an accident. You're not just here. You're not just, or someone's accident, or someone's mistake. You can never be a mistake. Because when God thought about you, He thought about you before even you were conceived. Before even you were created in your mother's womb, He thought about you. That's how much intentionality He has. And so you're not an accident, you're not a mistake, you're not just a blob. Is that what it is? Just a blob? You in your life matters. You're significant. You're here for a reason. And He loves you so much that even if He would have died on the cross just for you, thinking about you, He says that it would have been worth it. It would have been worth it. Even if it was just you who He thought. But it says that He died for humanity. He died for all of us. I know it's impossible to think or understand. How can a man, Jesus, die on the cross and think of all humanity? Because you and I, we cannot do that. We can't think about everybody, but He can. And so this song for me is just so significant. So you want to play?
Yes, we're going to play the song, and then I'm going to ask Monica to just close us off in a prayer after Jen plays.
So he's saying how much love He has for me, how much pain He suffered on the cross for me, for love. How much love He has for me. How much pain He suffered for me because of love. And the reason for such great love was to show me how valuable my life is. I'm so precious to God that He gave His only Son to die on the cross for me. Oh God, I praise You for Your love. You changed my inner being, and now I want to live to share this love that comes from You. Oh God, I praise You for Your love. You changed my inner being, and now I want to live to to share this love that comes from you. So, Father God, thank you so much for your love. That the reason why you went to the cross and you suffered so much pain was because of love, because how much you love each one of the ladies that are here in this room. So Father, I pray, Lord, that you would reveal your love to each one of the ladies here, and how deep your love goes, and how wide it is, and how high it is, and that you would fill their lives with this overwhelming love that you have for each one of them. So I pray a blessing over each one of the women here, and that they would not only know how much they're loved by you, but how precious and special their lives are, how important and significant they are, and how much you have, when you thought about each one of them, you had all the details of them in your mind, that each one of them are not an accident or a mistake, but that they were formed by your own hands. You fashioned them with your own hands. And you thought about the color of their hair, the color of their eyes. You thought about how they were going to look like. But the biggest thing is you thought of how you would relate to them and they would relate to you. So if there's anyone here, Lord, that doesn't know you yet, I pray that you would make yourself known to them. I pray that they will know you and be known by you. And I want to invite silently, you don't have to say anything, but silently I want to invite you, if you felt just a little something in your heart today. And there's this, it could be very small, but there's this question, who is this God? Maybe I could get to know him. Maybe I could also have a relationship with him, like Pastor Monica is saying. And if that's you, if there's that little 1 inch of interest or curiosity, or maybe you think that maybe you could be someone who could be transformed by him because you need him. You know that you need him. That you need a miracle in your life. That you need a healing in your life. That you need reconciliation with someone in your life. Or you need peace. If that's you, in your own heart, you can speak to him because he's hearing. He hears your prayers. He hears your thoughts. And so if that's you, you can tell him right now. You can say, God, I need a miracle. God, I need restoration. God, I need healing. God, I want to be made whole. God, I don't want to leak anymore. God, I want to know how much loved I am. You tell him, you can tell him in your own words. So thank you, God, that you hear all the prayers and longings of the heart of your daughters. Thank you, God, that you're an intimate God and you know every part of our lives. So I bless each one of the women, and in Jesus' name I pray.
Amen. Thank you.